Hello everyone, Nat Richards from Techs on the Move here, and it's been a little while since I've done one of these. I'm hopefully going to shake off some rust. Time for an April 21 update. So I'm aware there's a lot of glare going on over here. I'm sorry for that. It gets a bit bright in our office here in Sydney, and I'm bashing this out early before anybody else gets here so that I don't get in their way. So 5 key points that I wanted to focus on here in this video. I'll keep it as short and sharp as I can. First up, Techs on the Move. We're still here, we're not going anywhere. So yes, it's been a very rough year for Techs on the Move, lots of ups and downs along the way. We've persevered though, and we've come through in remarkably good condition, so we're very thankful for that. We've not successfully managed to bring anyone here from overseas, be it the United Kingdom or South Africa, where we commonly would focus to get mechanics to come to Australia for the entirety of the full year now that's passed since COVID-19 came along and changed everything in our business, and of course a lot beyond that. But nonetheless, we've kept afloat. We've still been very busy doing lots of migration work for our clients around Australia, thankfully, which has been very helpful. It also means that we've kept our ear to the ground very much with the pool of employers that, of course, we've worked with over the years to help people get recruited into Australia. And Gavin and I have also been very busy launching our new side to Techs on the Move, which of course focuses on supplying our own mechanics into our clients' workshops on temporary assignments. We're calling that Techs on the Move Rockstars. That will continue that. It definitely will be a focus of ours moving forward, but of course the migration stuff still very much going along, and we expect that will change again in the next year or so as things keep progressing. Point number 2 here, hopefully you can read some of this. Some visa applications still technically possible, but all is not what it seems online or on social. So what do I mean by that? It's a bit of a complicated one to break down, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Essentially, if you were interested in coming to Australia as a skilled migrant in automotive in our case, and taking a look online at the Australian government's website, you'd be very, very right in thinking that everything is still completely open for business and there's been no massive change, because not really anywhere does it say otherwise. However, unfortunately, that's just not true behind the sort of the public face that the Australian government maintains, or the Department of Home Affairs. And indeed, that's because of a couple of key reasons. Number one, the Australian government, of course, is still accepting applications for people who are still onshore, meaning on Australian soil right now, and processing those in much the same way as they did before COVID. There's been some tweaks here and there, more in proving that a business needs to sponsor somebody or can sponsor one with COVID lurking around in the background. But nonetheless, it's still much as it was if you're actually on Australian soil right now. Number 2, of course, is that there hasn't really been a lot of change in the system itself. So much of the stuff that you read online is still technically accurate, even though it might be a little bit hollow. And that's what I meant here by it not being what it seems online or on social. Because unfortunately, if you're not standing on Australian soil right now, essentially what the government has done is said, we'll still take your application if you can manage to find a visa that allows you to get one in. However, the bottom line is we're not going to guarantee that we do anything with it on any timetable that would allow you to plan for your life. So the government will still accept some applications in good faith, like a business-sponsored 482 temporary visa. However, we have no idea when they might actually process those, and they're never really likely, I think, to give us any sort of rational explanation for exactly how long it might take them to do that, because of course there's so much scope for things to change along the way here on the public health front, and that is what the government holds as its first and foremost priority. So if you see things written or represented online or on social media that would suggest that visas are easy to come by for those who are not in Australia, or that there are still very open and viable pathways, I'm telling you right now, in April 2021, when this information is still current, it's probably not what it seems. Point 3, no changing migration laws or policy, as I just mentioned, but it seems likely no opening of our system or our borders until 2022. So again, the Australian government is remarkably silent on these things. People are very understandably asking if there's any sort of a timetable for when the skilled visa system might effectively be turned back on, or indeed when our national borders will open to those who are not permanent residents or citizens of Australia. There's not really been any concrete communication around that, but piecing together all the little things that are said in different government channels or by different officials, I think it's very, very likely that we don't see any skilled migration in any sort of meaningful numbers again, and certainly for automotive until 2022. Point 4, guided by Australia's elimination strategy for COVID, it is likely that Australia will need to be vaccinated before the government will let you in. So this comes back to this 2022 thing. It's quite a unique strategy taken by the Australian government. There's only a few other countries around the world who have really pursued the strategy that Australia has or been able to pull it off. And thankfully, that's probably because we've got the world's biggest moat. We've gone straight for elimination, so there's not really been any attempt to contain COVID so much and try to keep the numbers low so that the system that supports public health can continue to offer services that are necessary to people to support them. We've just gone to straight out get rid of it, and we've proved remarkably able to do that wherever things have picked up now and again. So we're maintaining this system of hotel-based quarantine for returning travellers coming from overseas, and every now and again in certain parts of Australia around our capital cities, most recently in Brisbane, if you've been following, there's been little outbreaks where COVID has managed to jump out of one of those hotel quarantine places, and then a few community transmissions pop up. But Australian governments everywhere have proved willing and able to pretty much just shut cities down for a few days and stop everything. And we've very, very successfully managed to eliminate COVID every time that's popped up, learning a lot from the Melbourne experience that we had in the middle of last year. So I think really because of that, what the Australian government is clearly going for is a mass vaccination of the entire public down here. That's happening more slowly than it is in a lot of other Northern Hemisphere countries, probably in part because we simply don't have the numbers of COVID infections that have run through those different populations. So the strict need for it from a healthcare perspective is not there. Nonetheless, I think the government down here is going to need to see pretty much entire vaccination of Australia before we start to see meaningful numbers of people allowed to come through a more open border, supported by a skilled migration system that is effectively flowing rather than being effectively stalled as ours is right now. Lastly, Australia still needs automotive skills, and if you can stay patient and positive, we're pretty sure that you've got a very good chance of getting here. So over the last year or so, Gavin and I, of course, have still been very active within Australia's automotive industry. We talk to a hell of a lot of dealerships and small business owners on a fairly regular basis. A common theme for everyone at the moment, and indeed even for ourselves, given that we're now employing motor mechanics directly on our books and putting them back out into the workshops of our clients, no one has good techs. What I meant to say there is, of course, no one can find good techs. It's very, very difficult to find people on the open market looking for a new job. They simply don't seem to exist at the moment. There's a real lack, and indeed that's reinforced, of course, by the fact that the market down here, comparative to most other countries, is absolutely pumping. Automotive did really, really well through COVID, funnily enough, and indeed it's gone much better than it has for quite some years now. So the need for mechanics is certainly higher than what I recall seeing in the last half dozen years or so. Ironically, at a time where there's less Australian permanent resident or citizen mechanics looking for new jobs than what there have been of late. There's also, of course, no new mechanics coming into the country because temporary skilled migration has turned off, and even permanent residency-based visas for those coming from overseas are effectively stopped in a lot of cases as well. If people were halfway through an application, they've basically just had to hit pause. So all of that means that certainly our clients are all over Australia really feeling it at the moment, and a lot of them have said time and time again, please let me know, talking to me of course, please let me know when the borders reopen, or it looks like they're going to reopen. This is a conversation that we'll certainly want to have at that time. So I do anticipate that when this situation resolves itself, hopefully we'll start to see a little bit more of that coming in late 2021, and we'll be able to plan for it. Certainly we'll be quite active at that time in getting the word out. Things will start to open up, and there'll be a lot of opportunity for those who have stayed with this whole dream to come to Australia. We can bring it all together. So that's all of that. Thank you for being patient, bearing with me. This is not easy stuff to talk about succinctly. Anyone who has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You're welcome to give us a shout. However, I must preempt anyone's questioning on when do I think we're going to have open borders. I don't know. This has summarised that. What will the conditions be when they do open? I don't know. I think this has summarised that as well. And as far as consultation goes, we're happy to answer some questions where we can, but at the end of the day, for us to jump onto phone calls like we used to do and try to talk in detail about all this stuff is very, very difficult, and the last thing that we want to do is sell anyone false hope. It's much safer for us and more responsible, I think, to let it lie for a little while longer. Keep patient with all of this, and we'll get the details right once we get some more clarity on this stuff, hopefully toward the end of the year. Thanks very much, everybody. Talk to you soon.